Imagine if I told you that in the 19th century, entire factories operated using only the Earth's natural magnetism. No fuel, no conventional electricity, just harnessing an invisible force that has always existed around us. It sounds like science fiction, but this technology really existed, revolutionized the industry of the time, and then simply disappeared from historical records. Today, I'm going to show you how our ancestors discovered a form of energy that modern science is still trying to fully understand. A technology that has been deliberately forgotten or lost over time, but which may hold the key to solving our current global energy crisis. The story I'm about to tell will challenge everything you think you know about energy and technology. Together, we'll discover why this magnetic revolution was abandoned, who the geniuses behind these extraordinary inventions were, and whether it's possible to recreate this technology. Prepare yourself for a fascinating journey through one of humanity's most underrated discoveries. A discovery that could have changed the course of world energy history, but which, for mysterious reasons, was sidelined in favor of less efficient methods that we still use today. This is not just a history lesson. It is an investigation into lost technologies that may hold the answer to a sustainable and abundant energy future. The forgotten pioneers of magnetic energy. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, a new generation of visionary inventors began to explore the mysterious properties of Earth's magnetism. These pioneers were not charlatans or utopian dreamers. They were practical engineers, brilliant mathematicians, and experimental physicists who discovered something extraordinary. The Earth functions as a gigantic magnetic generator, and this energy can be captured and used. The most famous of these pioneers was Johann Bessler, known as Orffyreus, who in 1712 built a series of wheels that ran continuously using magnetic principles. His machines were examined by some of the greatest scientists of the time, including members of the Royal Academy of Sciences, and all confirmed that the wheels did indeed function without any visible external source of energy. But Orffyreus was not the only one. In America, John Worrell Keely developed what he called a sympathetic motor, a machine that supposedly extracted energy from what he termed etheric force. Although Keely was controversial, his public demonstrations attracted serious investors and respected scientists who witnessed phenomena they could not explain. The Hungarian scientist Baron Karl von Reichenbach dedicated decades to studying what he called odic force, a subtle energy emanating from magnets, crystals, and even living beings. His meticulous experiments documented energetic phenomena that conventional science of the time could not categorize. Nikola Tesla, the Serbian-American genius, also extensively explored the possibility of extracting free energy from the environment. His patents include several devices designed to capture and utilize ambient energy, including terrestrial magnetic energy. Tesla firmly believed that abundant and free energy was not only possible, but inevitable. What all these inventors had in common was the understanding that we live immersed in an ocean of energy. They understood that the Earth's magnetic field is not just a passive phenomenon, but a dynamic source of energy that can be accessed through appropriate technologies. Unfortunately, many of these discoveries were lost when their creators passed away without leaving complete records, or when their technologies were deliberately suppressed by industrial interests that relied on conventional fuels. If you're fascinated by these lost discoveries, like this video, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more content about suppressed technologies and alternative science. And click the hype button to support this research and outreach work. How did 19th century magnetic machines work? To understand how these extraordinary machines worked, we first need to understand the nature of Earth's magnetic field. Earth is not simply a static giant magnet. It is a dynamic system in constant motion, with currents of energy flowing through magnetic field lines that traverse the entire planet. 19th century inventors discovered that these magnetic field lines could be intercepted and directed using specific configurations of magnets, coils, and conductive materials. The basic principle was to create a controlled imbalance that would allow the system to extract energy from the ambient field. The wheel of Orffyreus, for example, used an ingenious combination of moving weights and strategically positioned magnets. When the wheel began to rotate, the movement created a resonance with the Earth's magnetic field that sustained the movement indefinitely. It did not violate the laws of physics. It simply accessed a source of energy that conventional science did not recognize. Keely's engine operated on even more sophisticated principles. He discovered that certain sound frequencies when amplified through specific metallic structures, could induce magnetic currents that generated mechanical motion. Keely demonstrated that he could move heavy objects, generate electricity, and even disintegrate stones using only harmonic vibrations. The most fascinating aspect of these technologies was their efficiency. While conventional engines of the time wasted most of their energy on heat and friction, magnetic machines operated silently, without excessive heating, and with an efficiency that seemed to defy known thermodynamic principles. Tesla took these concepts even further. His special coils could capture energy from distant storms, the ionosphere, and the Earth's own magnetic field. He demonstrated that it was possible to transmit energy wirelessly through resonance with the Earth's natural frequencies. The secret lay in synchronization. These machines did not force nature to produce energy. Instead, they harmonized with existing natural rhythms, amplifying and directing forces that had always been present but had been ignored by conventional technology. The materials were also crucial. Certain metals, crystals, and alloys demonstrated amplified magnetic properties when arranged in specific geometries. The inventors discovered that the shape, proportion, and orientation of the components were just as important as the materials used. The energy conspiracy that changed the world. The inevitable question is, if these technologies really worked, why were they abandoned? Why did we revert to less efficient methods of energy generation? The answer involves a complex web of economic, political, and scientific interests that have shaped technological development over the last 2 centuries. During the 19th century, the fossil fuel industry was emerging and had the potential to generate enormous profits. Coal, oil, and natural gas were commodities that could be extracted, refined, transported, and sold. More importantly, they were finite resources that ensured continued consumer dependence. Free magnetic energy represented an existential threat to this emerging business model. If people could generate their own energy using only magnets and scientific knowledge, the entire centralized energy industry would become obsolete overnight. Many inventors discovered this the hard way. J.P. Morgan, the financier who initially backed Tesla, quickly withdrew his support when he realized Tesla was developing free energy technology. Morgan reportedly said, "If anyone can just stick a stick in the ground and get free energy, where can I put a meter?" Suppression was not always direct or violent. Often it was subtle. Patents were bought and shelved, laboratories were destroyed by accidental fires, and inventors were isolated from the scientific community through campaigns of discrediting. The education system itself was reshaped to discourage the exploration of alternative energy. Universities began teaching that free energy was impossible, violated the laws of thermodynamics, and that anyone who claimed otherwise was a charlatan. Entire generations of scientists and engineers were conditioned to automatically reject anything that challenged conventional energy paradigms. The first and second industrial revolutions further solidified the dependence on fossil fuels. Enormous investments in coal and oil infrastructure created economic momentum that made alternatives increasingly economically unviable. Simultaneously, the discovery of radioactivity and the development of nuclear physics offered a convenient distraction. Nuclear energy seemed to offer energy abundance without fundamentally challenging the model of centralization and control that benefited existing corporations. The result was that promising magnetic technologies were deliberately forgotten, lost, or suppressed. Knowledge that could have led humanity to an era of energy abundance was replaced by systems that guaranteed controlled scarcity and continuous profits. Modern rediscovery and suppressed research. In recent decades, a growing number of independent researchers have begun to rediscover and replicate lost magnetic technology. Using modern tools and advanced scientific understanding, they are proving that magnetic energy is not only possible, but can be more efficient than any conventional technology. Engineer John Bedini developed a series of motors that operate on principles similar to 19th century machines. His devices demonstrate superunity. They produce more useful energy than they consume electrically. Bedini meticulously documents his experiments and publishes detailed instructions for replication. In Australia, Bruce De Palma conducted extensive experiments with homopolar generators that supposedly extract energy from ambient space. His N1 machines demonstrated anomalous efficiency that cannot be explained by conventional physics. German physicist Klaus Tertur has published academic papers demonstrating that energy can be extracted from the quantum vacuum using specific configurations of electromagnetic fields. His work provides a solid theoretical basis for phenomena that were only empirical in the 19th century. Paradoxically, the more sophisticated these experiments become, the more they are marginalized by the mainstream scientific community. Academic journals refuse to publish results that challenge established paradigms. Universities avoid funding research into alternative energy. Technology companies occasionally develop promising devices, only to see them mysteriously disappear. Patents are bought by corporations that then shelve them indefinitely. Researchers are offered lucrative contracts in exchange for silence about their discovery. The internet has allowed information about these technologies to spread, but it has also facilitated disinformation campaigns. Legitimate websites are mixed with obviously false content, creating confusion that discourages serious investigation. Despite these obstacles, communities of independent researchers continue to make significant progress. They share findings through specialized forums, alternative conferences, and communication channels that avoid corporate censorship. The most frustrating aspect is that many of these rediscoveries are confirmed by principles of modern physics. Quantum mechanics, field theory, and contemporary cosmology all offer plausible explanations for phenomena that were mysterious in the 19th century. The scientific evidence for magnetic energy. Modern physics actually offers multiple theoretical explanations for how magnetic energy might work. What our ancestors discovered empirically in the 19th century now has solid scientific foundations based on discoveries from the 20th and 21st century. The first piece of the puzzle is the nature of the quantum vacuum. Quantum physics demonstrates that what we call empty space actually teems with energy. Virtual particles constantly appear and disappear, creating energy fluctuations that can, theoretically, be exploited. The Casimir effect experimentally proves that energy can be extracted from a vacuum. When two metal plates are placed extremely close to each other, quantum forces pull them together, performing mechanical work using energy seemingly extracted from nothing. Unified field theory, developed by Einstein and others, suggests that magnetism, electricity, gravity, and nuclear force are different manifestations of a single fundamental force. If this is true, careful manipulation of magnetic fields could access other forces of nature. The discovery of dark energy and dark matter reveals that 95% of the universe consists of forms of energy that we do not fully understand. It is possible that magnetic technologies are accessing these exotic forms of energy that permeate all of space. Superconductivity offers another plausible mechanism. When certain materials are cooled below critical temperatures, they conduct electricity without resistance and can sustain magnetic fields indefinitely. High-temperature superconductors could make magnetic energy commercially viable. Magnetic resonance is another well-documented phenomenon. When systems oscillate at specific frequencies, they can extract energy from ambient sources through resonant coupling. This explains how 19th century machines could have amplified small magnetic fluctuations to useful levels. Chaos theory and dynamical systems show how small perturbations can be amplified in nonlinear systems. Appropriately designed magnetic devices could function as amplifiers that transform minute quantum fluctuations into usable macroscopic energy. The irony is that while the scientific evidence for magnetic energy grows stronger, institutional resistance also increases. Established paradigms are defended not by scientific logic, but by economic and political inertia. Modern experiments validating ancient principles. Independent laboratories around the world are conducting experiments that systematically validate the principles discovered by 19th century inventors. These experiments use modern measuring equipment and rigorous protocols that were impossible at the time of the original invention. Dr. Hal Puthoff at the Institute for Advanced Studies documented energy anomalies in electromagnetic systems that suggest energy extraction from the quantum vacuum. His experiments show that certain configurations can produce more energy than they consume, seemingly violating the conservation of energy. In Russia, Dr. Vladimir Ratis developed magneto-hydrodynamic generators that extract energy from ambient magnetic fields. His devices have been independently tested and confirmed by official research institutes. American engineer Tom Bearden has documented dozens of devices that demonstrate free energy. His technical books provide detailed analyses of how these systems work and why they are rejected by conventional science. Japanese researchers at Tohoku University have discovered that certain configurations of permanent magnets can generate continuous rotating fields without external energy input. Although they haven't applied this to practical energy generation, the principles are identical to those used in 19th century machines. In Germany, Professor Klaus Turcher not only theorizes about vacuum energy, but has built functional devices that demonstrate the concept. His experiments are published in engineering journals and can be replicated by other researchers. The most compelling aspect of these modern experiments is their reproducibility. Unlike vague claims of the past, contemporary devices include detailed construction instructions, precise measurements of power input and output, and experimental protocols that allow for independent verification. Universities occasionally conduct similar experiments, but rarely publish positive results. When they do publish, they typically focus on explaining why the results do not violate conservation of energy, rather than exploring practical applications. The situation has created an interesting division in the scientific community. Independent researchers routinely demonstrate energy anomalies, while institutional scientists insist that such anomalies are impossible or irrelevant. This division isn't fundamentally about science. It's about who controls energy technology and who benefits from existing paradigms. Scientific evidence alone will never be enough to overcome economic and political resistance. Why does this technology remain suppressed today? The suppression of magnetic technology in the 21st century is more sophisticated but equally effective than in the 19th century. Modern methods of control include financial manipulation, government regulation, media control, and educational conditioning that make it impossible for disruptive technologies to achieve mainstream adoption. The patent system is one of the most effective tools. When inventors develop revolutionary energy devices, they often try to protect their discoveries through patents. Corporations then buy these patents and file them away, ensuring that technologies never reach the market. Government regulation creates another barrier. Agencies like the EPA and the Department of Energy have the authority to ban technologies that do not meet established standards. Because standards were created based on conventional technologies, anything fundamentally different is automatically rejected. Research funding is controlled by organizations that have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. Universities rely on corporate and government funding, so they avoid research that could threaten sponsors. Independent researchers struggle to obtain the resources needed for commercial development. Mainstream media rarely covers developments in alternative energy, except to ridicule them. When promising technologies are mentioned, they are typically presented as hoaxes or fantasies without serious investigation of their scientific merits. Science education conditions students to automatically reject anything that challenges established paradigms. Teachers teach that free energy is impossible without ever examining current scientific evidence. Scientists are trained with biases that prevent objective investigation. Economic pressure is systematically applied. Inventors find they cannot obtain loans, investors are discouraged by specialized consultants, and companies face hostile regulation when they try to commercialize alternative technologies. Occasionally, suppression is more direct. Laboratories suffer mysterious accidents, prototypes are stolen, and inventors receive offers they can't refuse to abandon projects. Methods vary, but the result is always the same. Promising technologies never reach the market. The irony is that suppression has become self-sustaining. Even if energy corporations decided to allow alternative energy, decades of conditioning have created public skepticism. The result is that we live in an age of unprecedented, but we remain dependent on 19th century because superior technologies are systematically developing. The transformative potential for our civilization. If magnetic technologies were allowed to develop freely, the implications for human civilization would be absolutely revolutionary. Abundant and virtually free energy would literally transform every aspect of society, from the economy to the environment, politics, and international relations. Economically, magnetic energy would eliminate the artificial scarcity that defines current energy markets. When energy becomes essentially free, production costs for all goods decrease dramatically. Agriculture, manufacturing, transportation, and communication would become exponentially more efficient and accessible. Environmentally, dependence on fossil fuels would end immediately. No more coal mining, oil drilling, or hydraulic fracturing. Air, water, and land pollution would be reduced to minimal levels. Climate change caused by carbon emissions would become a problem of the past. Geographically, civilization would no longer be limited by the availability of energy resources. Deserts could be transformed into oases through energy-efficient desalination. Polar regions would become habitable. Even space exploration would become viable when fuel ceases to be a limitation. Socially, abundant energy would eliminate energy poverty that afflicts billions of people. Remote communities would have access to the same energy abundance as urban centers. Global economic development would be limited only by human creativity, not by access to energy. Politically, wars over energy resources would become obsolete. Countries would no longer need to control oil reserves or supply routes. Geopolitical power would be redistributed based on innovation and productivity, not control of natural resources. Technologically, abundant energy would accelerate development in all fields. Computing, medicine, transportation, and communication could advance without energy limitations. Projects that are economically unfeasible today would become commonplace. The most profound aspect would be human freedom. When people are not dependent on corporations for energy, individual autonomy increases dramatically. Communities could be self-sufficient. Individuals would have the resources to pursue creative passions instead of simply surviving. That is precisely why magnetic technology is suppressed. It's not about science or technical feasibility. It's about maintaining power structures that depend on energy control. The choice facing humanity is not technical. It is political and moral. We have the technical capacity for abundant energy now. The question is whether we will allow vested interests to continue hindering human progress. The steps for rediscovery and implementation. Fortunately, the information age makes complete suppression of knowledge increasingly difficult. Communities of independent researchers are systematically redescribing magnetic technologies and sharing discoveries through channels that bypass traditional corporate censorship. The first step is education. People need to understand that alternative energy is not fantasy, but solid science that has been deliberately marginalized. Books, documentaries, and online resources provide technical information that allows anyone to investigate for themselves. The second step is small-scale experimentation. Many magnetic devices can be built using commercially available materials. Home experimenters around the world are replicating historical experiments and sharing results through specialized forums. The third step is collaborative development. Open source projects allow geographically dispersed researchers to work together to refine designs and improve efficiency. Knowledge is freely shared instead of being proprietary. The fourth step is public demonstration. When technologies mature sufficiently, they need to be publicly demonstrated in a way that cannot be ignored or discredited. Alternative energy festivals and specialized conferences serve this purpose. The fifth step is decentralized production. Instead of trying to build massive corporations, development should be distributed across many small businesses that are difficult to suppress simultaneously. 3D printing and digital manufacturing facilitate local production. The sixth step is community adoption. Communities that collectively adopt magnetic energy have more resistance to suppression than isolated individuals. Energy cooperatives and community projects create momentum that is difficult to stop. The seventh step is political pressure. When enough people understand the benefits of alternative energy, they can pressure political representatives to change regulations that hinder commercial development. The process will not be easy or quick. Established interests will not relinquish energy control without a fight. But history shows that sufficiently beneficial technology eventually overcome resistance, no matter how powerful. The key is persistence and decentralization. Instead of relying on a single breakthrough or individual inventor, the movement must be sustained by thousands of researchers working independently toward the same goal. How can you participate in this energy revolution? The rediscovery of magnetic technology doesn't depend solely on professional scientists. Every interested person can contribute to this global movement, regardless of their technical background or resources. If you're interested in science, you can start by studying electromagnetism and building simple experiments. Many projects begin with magnets, copper coils, and readily available ferromagnetic materials. For those less technically inclined, support through documentation and dissemination is important. Recording experiments, creating videos, and sharing information helps break down barriers that keep these technologies marginal. Financial investment makes a difference. Many independent researchers struggle to obtain basics. Resources. Crowdfunding platforms allow for the funding of promising research ignored by conventional institutions. Political pressure is another important channel. Contacting representatives about energy policies, supporting candidates who favor alternative energy, and participating in regulatory processes can gradually change the legal environment. Community-based education multiplies individual impact. Organizing lectures, workshops, and study groups creates networks of informed people who can push for change and support development collaboratively. Networking through conferences, online forums, and specialized organizations connects you with a global community of researchers who freely share knowledge. Most importantly, Keep an open mind and question conventional energy narratives. Suppression depends on public acceptance of artificial limitations. When people question why energy should be expensive and scarce, the foundations of suppression begin to crumble. The movement is not just about technology. It's about human freedom, environmental sustainability, and creating a future where abundance replaces artificial scarcity. Each person who joins this movement makes it more difficult for vested interests to maintain control over energy development. When knowledge becomes widespread, suppression becomes impossible. If you've made it this far on this journey through the history of magnetic energy, please like this video because it shows me that this educational content truly makes a difference and motivates me to continue researching and sharing knowledge that can transform our energy future. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, click the bell icon so you don't miss the next videos about alternative technologies. There's a fascinating video playing on the screen about the 5 energy technologies that could change the world, that explores other suppressed innovations. It's worth watching to expand your understanding of alternative science. Thank you for taking the time to learn about this fascinating story. Remember, knowledge is power, and when we understand that abundant technologies already exist, we can work together to overcome barriers that prevent us from accessing a sustainable energy future today.